teams, like, take a shot of it.
Please come to order. Now, you may wonder why I wasn't up at front at the beginning of the meeting. I've gotten, some emails saying, you're really not interacting with the members enough. You need to smooth a little bit more. You're coming up for re-election. Yeah. I took it to heart. It's true. So often when I'm here and we're doing the meeting, I get more involved with, do we have the projector set up, do we have the chairs, and I forget about the people. So I apologize for that, and I will promise to do better. So with that said, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to meeting number, what are we, 230? 231?
231, I think. Yeah, 231.
Just real quick, hit the web browser and go hit the TMG website. 231. And the main presentation today is going to be done by our membership vice president, Mr. Curtner, and it'll be on using your Mac to do genealogy, though it's really going to be more of a generic genealogy presentation. Now, I apologize for those folks who thought I had said gerontology. It's genealogy. Okay. And just to sort of set it up, this is the presentation that it's an updated presentation of what you did, what he did 3 years ago, was it?
It always changes.
3 years ago. It's updated. It's current. But I still have people who, periodically when I ask them why they joined the group, they said, "Oh, it was that genealogy presentation that I saw." So I figured 3 years, yeah, it's time to bring it back out. So with that said, let's start with news. Do we have any news for the members or from the members? This is where we have the Jeopardy. Dun, 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 dun. Just so you know, next Monday, Apple has their Worldwide Developer Conference starting up. So, true to form, we have our meetings just before all of these major Apple events. And people have asked me, what do you think they're going to do at the Worldwide Developer Conference? So, polishing off my crystal ball, this is what I think you're going to see. First thing is they're going to be talking about the iOS 7 operating system. And that's going to be the one that's for your iPhone, your iPad, your iPod Touch, et cetera, et cetera. So they'll probably not only announce it, they'll probably show us quite a bit about it. The second thing is there's going to be some sort of mystery device that they announce or software. My bet is software, and it's probably going to be an update to their package called iWork. So that's the Keynote Pages and Numbers suite. There may be some more improvements to the iLife package, but they've they really don't work with that as much as they have in the past. The other thing that will probably be announced will be a new Mac in that it's going to be a revitalized machine, and that'll be a Mac Pro, I'm guessing. Now remember, this is me guessing. I can be wrong. But the Mac Pro is the old-time desktop machines that we're used to, big heavy iron. And they have not updated those for at least 2 or 3 years. And the main points are going to be that they're going to be building it somewhere in a factory in Texas. You got your stuff right up here. Bill Howe wouldn't let anybody else sit there. And it's going to have modern processors in it and probably some other. But that'll be a big deal because it'll be the first time Apple's been building, not just assembling, but actually manufacturing computers in the U.S. for about 12 years. Now, all their manufacturing has been off-season now for 12 years. And that was one of the last of Steve Jobs' commitments. When he was at that dinner with President Obama, that was one of the things that he had committed to bring back some manufacturing back to the U.S. Other than that, I can't really think of anything else. Yeah.
I wondered if they'd be bringing out any of those new small gadgets that are going to keep track of your walking, your breathing, your heart pressure. I mean, they've got all these new things that are coming out. There was a tech thing on BBC this morning about this, but I've also read it other places.
The people who build those are not Apple.
Okay.
So, for example, Nike has some components that they build into shoes and others that they have, and then it talks to your iPod or your iPad or your iPhone. There's another thing that a member of the extended family is using where they wear it like a wristwatch, and then it talks to their Apple iMac, and it brings in all of the exercise stuff that they've done that day. So it's a combination pedometer and blood pressure monitor, and that works with software that then talks to a scale that this company makes, for your weight, and it puts it all together, and then it shows you in more detail than you want to see about, oh, if I do this, I can get this result over here. So those are going to be from companies not from Apple. They're going to be companies that are working with Apple's connectivity stuff.
We saw when we were at Cincinnati Bell Store getting our new phones, a guy had, I think it was a Sony phone, he had a thing on his wrist, and he could look, it would tell him when he got messages and things on his phone. So he didn't have to carry his phone, he had it there, and then he'd go get his phone. He'd keep looking at his wrist to see what was on his phone.
Now, I would remind you that as much as people think Apple is an innovator, okay, they learned not to be an innovator with the Newton, the first PDA that they came out with. What Apple is good at is letting other people go first, and then you find out what they're doing wrong, and then Apple comes in, refines it so it's something that people are more willing to use. It has an easier interface. The iPod was not the first MP3 player. I have one of these Arcos MP3 players, and it was about the size of 2 bricks and about as heavy. Well, Apple looked at what they were doing and what Samsung was doing and Sanyo was doing and some other companies were doing, and they came out with this thing that was the size of a pack of cigarettes. That was the first iPod. And boom, it took off. And of course, the pundits were saying, oh, this will never work. The MP3 player market is overcrowded, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're starting to see these iWatch things coming out, where different companies have these wrist devices. And there's a lot of stuff with their interface. You have to press too many buttons to get it to do stuff. It's sort of like, think about, you've got a simple Timex watch, and you want to set the date and the month on it. Okay, how many of you, sort of like go, okay, how am I going to do this?
Yes.
Well,
How you pull it out.
so there's going to be some sort of wearable device. And this will start us down that path to eventually where you're going to have things like the Google Glass. Where you're wearing, okay, already Google's getting a lot of pushback on that, because if you can record anything with your Google Glasses wherever you are, that can be a problem. So you already have some YMCAs, health clubs, workout places on the West Coast where they're saying no Google Glasses allowed, because the other patrons want to maintain their privacy. They don't want somebody filming them and then broadcasting it on YouTube. Especially if you're with a towel in the locker room, you really don't want people. So that's something that is going to be coming down the line, but I don't see at the Worldwide Developer Conference them announcing a new device that's going to be a wrist device. But yeah, Dick Tracy wristwatch, it's coming. Yeah.
I just wondered, I had seen last year sometime about that Apple had bought a patent for a pen, and I wondered if they were working on anything on the pen end where it goes directly to the computer when you write, take notes, and I guess there was something with a little camera in this.
They ended up buying the company that had the patents.
Okay.
And there are devices out there now
Yeah.
that when you're writing with your pen, it's putting that stuff into an application on your iPad.
Ah,
So there's stuff already out there.
I just wondered if they were gonna make it more sophisticated
And I think they're working on a lot of these things. In the same way, they bought a television manufacturer in West Germany that was known for high-end LCD televisions, sort of like a Curtis Mather of radio, only to television. But everybody thought they were going to come out with an Apple TV, but they haven't done anything with that company that we know of yet. So some of these plans are fairly long-range plans. In the last stockholders meeting, Tim Cook, who's now the CEO of Apple Computer, made the comment that the last of the Steve Jobs projects would be winding up somewhere around 2017, 2018, and the first of his projects were started to follow in on that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Now, as much as the media is down on Apple and they pounded the stock down to $400 a share, it used to be up at $700. I look at what people buy, and if you look at those sales figures for the Samsung Galaxy and some of the other ones that the media is just saying, oh, this is the thing, they're not selling in the stores. They're not getting anywhere near the traction that the iPhone still gets. So, sometimes you got to sort of ignore the hype and sort of focus on what are people actually buying, what are they using? Yeah.
Do you think they'll announce any refresh on the laptops in particular? There's a lot of speculation about whether the older configuration of the MacBook Pros would be phased out as the Retina display computers become more and more dominant.
That would be a natural progression of what they've done in the past. So I would anticipate something like that. The other thing is, you've got the iPad mini. Right. The same way that the Mac Pro, they're not building any of the Mac Pros. They cut down stopped that assembly line about 6 months ago, so like there's not much in the supply chain. Same thing with the iPad minis. So, if they're going to do something with that iPad mini, do you know what the reason why they came out with the iPad mini? It was a form factor thing. It fits in a purse.
Oh.
It fits in a purse.
She wanted extra price.
That was the thing that they got as feedback. Ladies, you love your iPads, but sometimes that's a little too big. You want to carry something with you. You want to have a little bit larger device because maybe that iPhone screen isn't quite it. And the iPad mini fits in the purse. And they actually brought all these purses and what clutches and see. Okay. So they're probably going to be doing something with the iPad mini, and I would not be surprised if we see some sort of update on the full-blown iPad towards the Christmas season. Yeah.
Another quick question. They had that big e-textbook conference, I guess, a year ago or whenever it was. I wondered if you've heard anything about what they're doing with e-textbooks.
Other than being sued by the U.S. Department of Justice for
Yeah.
antitrust.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was such a big, they had that big blow-up.
Well, that's not over the
in New
textbooks,
York.
that's over
Okay.
the e-reader.
It's
But it's blowing up on college campuses now. It has been.
you've got over 50 universities that now, when you matriculate as a freshman, you're handed an iPad, and your books are on it. One of the things that's very disruptive that Apple did, and this was one of Steve Jobs' things. When he was at Reed College, it really bothered him. He was spending more for his textbooks than he was for his rent for his apartment. Okay. So you have that iBook author program, which is free. That's for creating books.
Yeah, right.
And they can be very complex textbooks, multimedia. So you've got these university professors that are now starting to use this, and they've got some traction over at some of the, not so much your Ivy League, but the West and Midwest universities, where instead of them going through the typical publishing process where you submit your manuscript in a PDF form to Academic Press then does their stuff. They print the books, they come out with the overpriced PDF that you can buy electronically. What they're doing is the professors are creating their next edition in iPad Author, and they're selling it through the iTunes store, but it's not for the general public. It's being sold at the university bookstores through the iTunes store.
Did you say iPad Author? Or,
It's iBook Author.
iBook
And it's a
Author,
free
that's what I
program you can download for
no, I'm
creating
familiar with it, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
relatively heavy, textbooks. So this is not like Notepad.
No, I
Yeah,
I've
this
downloaded
is,
it when it
you've
first
got
came out.
lots of illustrations, and you maybe want to have video in it, and whatever else. So those are some of the disruptive things that are going on.
So you're suggesting we cannot get to these university books?
Let's go through.
Right now, because, you follow the money, all right? You follow the money. So the university that owns the publisher, like Academic Press, they still want to have that money coming in. So they're controlling this very carefully, in the same way that the traditional publishers are very careful to constrain the types of audiobooks or ebooks that are available through your library system. They prefer you to buy this stuff rather than rent it or get it through the other. So there's some interesting things going on. The other thing that might be announced next week is a thing called iRadio. So this is going to be like Pandora. How many of you know about Pandora? Okay, Pandora, wonderful way to have some nice background music without having to pay an arm and a leg for it. And you have more control over it's like listening to the radio, only you have more control over what they're playing. So instead of just tuning into WGUC, Bach all the time, or Baroque all the time, Baroque all the time, you can say, okay, I want to listen to Nora Jones, and then let me listen to some other people like Nora Jones, sort of throw those in periodically. And you have control over that with Pandora, Spotify, there's a bunch of these services. Well, Apple has gotten some of the major players with this stuff that own the content to agree. So there's going to be some sort of iRadio announcement. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Okay. The other thing, I want you to keep thinking if you know something that the members need to know about. The other thing I wanted to make sure you know about is updates that have been released. Okay. And we just sort of get this thing, there we go. So it's a little bit brighter. Okay. One of the things I deliberately do is I don't update the MacBook until I get to the meeting, because that way I've got what the major updates were. First and foremost, Mac OS X 10.8. 10.8.4 is the update for that. Now, that was delayed for a while because they've been working on iOS 7. So if you're running Mountain Lion, that's the kitty cat name for Mac OS 10.8, there's a nice update there. And it's doing typical security and fixes of this, and it fixes some stuff in iMessage. There's also, if you're a photographer, there's a digital camera raw compatibility update. iTunes 11.0.4. Okay, so they've done some stuff there, and some of it is interface stuff. So now you can see album artwork when you're in a view that you couldn't see before, and they cleaned up some stuff when you've got multiple discs. So if you've got Nat King Cole, okay, the Capitol Years, and it's like an 8-disc set. Actually, I think it's like a 10-disc set. Now, it presents it easier so you can see which disc you're looking at. So they cleaned up some stuff with that, which is always good to see. Thunderbolt firmware update. Now, Thunderbolt is one of these technologies that the newer machines have built into them, but nobody really has been able to use it much yet. The whole idea behind Thunderbolt is you've got an electronic highway that'll let you move data and audio and video at a much faster rate than you could before. And the idea is you can daisy chain devices. So if you've got a MacBook Pro or one of the newer MacBooks at the very end of the MacBook, there's a small little port on the side and it's got like a lightning bolt next to it. That's your Thunderbolt port. I'm using it right now to go from this MacBook Pro to that video projector, but you could also have it going to other monitors. People ask me, how do you put more than one monitor on a Mac? Well, you use Thunderbolt to do it. So you could have 4 large, 55-inch LCD screens running off of Thunderbolt and a 16 terabyte server that you're replicating to another 16 terabyte server. And it just moves this stuff back and forth. And this is technology. Apple learned their lesson with FireWire. That's Apple and Intel has worked on. So it's technology owned by Intel. Intel wants to put this in PCs, and they started to put it onto PC motherboards this year. Now we're waiting for the hard drives and the other devices that are going to be using Thunderbolt. Right now, the ones that are out there are your higher-end devices. Yeah.
And that raises the question, the Thunderbolt display that Apple sells, for the kind of purpose you're talking about, still has USB 2 ports on the back. Is there any thoughts or about when Apple is going to finally
Inside
update that to
Thunderbolt
USB 3?
display, there's a Thunderbolt hub. So when you're plugging a USB device into it, it's using Thunderbolt to move that
but I mean
data.
they're not USB 3.
USB 3 is going to
They're
be
putting
on,
USB on everything else. So when,
that's where they're going.
the question is, when are they going to put 3 on the Thunderbolt display? You pay $1,000 for this display. You want to use it as like a docking station or a hub. You don't want to be hubbing older technology if you can afford
What
it.
you're going to
3
see,
is backwards
what
compatible.
you're going to see is you're going to see hubs that are Thunderbolt hubs. And then you're plugging in USB 3 devices, eSATA devices, S-video devices, HDMI devices, like your big 55-inch. I've been shopping TVs, so that's why I'm sort of focused on it. I've been shopping the 42-inch. Any case.
Older eyes need bigger screens.
But the idea is, with Apple, they don't want to be the only ones pushing this. They want to make it a more of a mainstream.
It just seems inconsistent. They're putting USB 3 on their newer MacBook Pros, iMacs, the Mac Mini, but they haven't updated the Thunderbolt display.
And it's because their VP of hardware retired. This is, no, seriously.
Now you're getting at the
No,
core
seriously,
problem.
the real reason, the VP of hardware retired, a new guy came in, and then that guy got canned, along with the guy that was handling the software, the one that wanted everything to be isomorphic. And then the VP of hardware came out of retirement. Sort of like what happened with J.C. Penney, where Ron Johnson left and the guy who was came back in, or Procter & Gamble, another company where the CEO was not meeting or exceeding expectations. They retired, and now the previous CEO is coming back in. All right, now, for those of you who are male and you're near retirement, you want to consider this, okay? You want to make sure you're doing that retirement planning so that you can say honestly when you retire, I'm busier now than I ever was when I was working. Okay, otherwise you're going to end up going back. Okay, so just file that. Yes, George.
What's kind of the relative speed comparison between USB 3 and Thunderbolt? You know?
USB 3 would be like a 4-lane highway. Thunderbolt would be taking 2 or 3 New Jersey turnpikes, each one with 16 lanes, and having your data flash through. If I'm replicating a terabyte drive to a terabyte drive with USB 3, that's 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte of data. It's going to take me about 4 to 5 hours. If I'm doing it with Thunderbolt, I can do it under 10 minutes. I saw a demonstration by Intel where they had two 16 terabyte servers, and they were replicating all of the data on this 16 terabyte server. They were moving 16 terabytes of data onto this other box, and it did it in under 45 minutes, while it was driving 4 large 55-inch HDMI televisions, and it was doing other stuff. So it's the electronic highway of the future for your non-internet stuff. And on top of that, Intel just announced that their labs were able to figure out a way where they could double the speed of Thunderbolt going forward without having to change the hardware. So it's a software thing.
Double the speed of Thunderbolt.
So this is going to be where we go with this. Because the hard drives keep getting bigger, the data keeps getting bigger, and trying to do those backups, trying to do a backup of a 1 terabyte drive using FireWire or USB 2, you're talking 6-8 hours for it to do it.
It's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. And of course, the problem that you run into if you're a normal human being is, okay, what happens if the power in the house goes out in that 6 to 8 hour period? If it only is a half hour when you're moving data, you don't worry about it. It's like, what's the probability of, in a 30-minute period, the power is going to go out? Not that great. But if you're talking about 8 hours, okay, it's summer, you got thunderstorms, start to come through, then it becomes very problematic unless you've got UPSs. Okay, I just want to finish the other things that are available for update. So we were talking about iTunes, the OS X 10.84 update, raw camera update, Thunderbolt, and then scrolling down here, there's an iPhoto update. There's also an Aperture update, if you're an Aperture user.
Mine came up with a security update also today.
If you're running one of the older operating systems, so that would be Lion, Snow Leopard, Leopard, excuse me, not Leopard. Leopard didn't get the security update. They have security updates also. Okay, and they're pretty hefty. They're about 300 megabytes in size, 380 million characters of information. Okay, now remember, 1 million characters of information, that's the equivalent of a Harry Potter novel, so we're talking like 380 Harry Potter novels. Stuff coming. Just, I keep thinking about, my old Apple II and my 5 1/4, well, better yet, my audio cassettes, and how I used to be able to do so much with so little, and now I look at the code and it just amazes me. Yeah. Did you have a question in the back?
Actually, I do. You read my mind.
Okay. When it comes back.
I had a question about my migration system.
Okay, then
On
let me just do this
Oh, I'm
then.
sorry. Go ahead.
Anybody else have any news items? Going once, going twice? Oh, and there's a Flash update, by the way. Adobe Flash, there's a Flash update.
You haven't used the sunrose today.
Yeah, okay. All right, so you
Anything about
have,
a new iPhone coming?
because of the litigation that's going on, you're not going to see a new iPhone coming out for a while. Okay. Apple just lost some stuff with the lost some rulings with the International Trade Commission, and so they need to sort of get some other legal stuff out of the way before they're going to move forward. According to official, yes?
Do we have any visitors?
Oh, thank you very much. Do we have any visitors today, Mr. Curtner? No visitors? Do we have anybody who decided to pay us money to be a member for it?
Mark took my money.
Okay.
We're going to do that before I
Okay. You didn't remind the audience that I owe you money for my membership.
I wouldn't do that.
I'm going to up it to a family membership this time.
You had one before.
I'm tired of supporting my wife with her Apple equipment. I'm going to try and get her to come to the meeting.
Be careful what you wish for.
No, I think this would be a good thing. I think this would be a good thing. All right, so what we're going to do is officially move over to help desk. So you had a question about.
My question was, on my Mac Pro at home, I've reached the ceiling on upgrades. I'm only at line. I can't go any further. It won't allow, Apple won't allow it to go any higher. But on my MacBook Pro, I want to go to Mountain Lion.
Okay.
Is there going to be a problem with transferring information? If I want to use Migration Assistant on the main one to put new stuff on my MacBook Pro, is there going to be a problem?
Okay, no, there isn't going to be a problem because that's what Migration Assistant was designed to do. To move a user profile, to copy a user profile completely from an older machine to a newer machine without messing up the older machine
Well, the
and
reason
without
why I
messing up the
bring it
new
up
machine.
is that I had Lion, which I was going to put on from my Mac Pro onto the MacBook Pro,
Okay.
about a month or so ago, and I was going to put Lion on my MacBook Pro,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't allow me to do it. It said I had to have Lion on there to begin with.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to run into those kinds of problems
Okay.
again.
Did Lion come with your Mac Pro? Or was that
No,
something you
I
bought?
bought it as a thumb drive, actually.
Okay, you bought it as a thumb drive.
Right.
Did you try using that thumb drive on your MacBook Pro?
Yeah, I did,
And
fine.
it,
The problem was is that I lost it
okay,
in the house, now I found it and put it on there, it worked fine.
okay. Two things you need to know. One is, you should be able to, okay, it's called what, Lion Recovery Drive. There's a program you can download from Apple. It's called Lion Recovery something. But what it does is it allows you to recreate one of those thumb drives so that you can install Lion from it. And there's also a version for Mountain Lion. Okay. Now, normally I'd just tell you, just re-download it from the App Store, but I don't know if you can still download Lion from the App Store.
I've done it just recently.
Yeah. You can? Okay. So, what you would do is, you're on the MacBook Pro. I remember correctly in Snow Leopard, and if there's anybody with a better memory, jump in. In your utility folder, there's a Java application that is also for setting preferences. So what I would do first of all is go into that and see what you've got it set to do and whether there are any outside activities that it's allowing. The other thing I would do is go into your preferred web browser and go into either your security or privacy settings. It depends on what the web browser is, which you go into,
Plugin, Java plugins already.
and look at the Java plugins.
That's already disabled.
Okay. You might want to enable them and see if they have a preference for automatically updating themselves, because even if you have the plugin disabled, the update function may still be out there trying to do its thing.
Okay.
Okay? But that's where I would be focusing on. Okay? So you don't,
So
it's
there's
not
a Java-
associated with any particular website or anything else. And you've all already taken the various
Anything-
tools that Apple has for cleaning out.
Yep, I did the test for Flashback and didn't find anything. So you're saying it's a Java-based,
Yeah.
because Application Manager didn't show anything specific as to something happening every 7 seconds or something. It was just showing me what was running, but Console was what was showing me what was hitting my firewall, and it was
Okay.
something about Java listening.
Okay. So you've got something that's Java-based, and it's just doing network stuff. It's not actually running a process. Yeah.
So there's a Java application in utilities, you said?
If I remember correctly, and there's some settings in there. I wish Don Baldwin was here, because he was the guy I used to go to for Java questions. But in there you can set what's allowed to happen. In your web browser, you can tell it, in terms of Java, what websites it's allowed to do stuff with. And if you're not playing like the drop-down tiles, the Java-based games on the, okay, well some people do, and it's very important to their lives that they do that. I'd go in there and clean out anything that's a permission for Java to be doing something with a website, and then go back in and see
Right.
if that got rid of it. Okay, let's go to Chuck, and then we'll go to Frank, and then we'll go to Ray.
My question was, is Java in just the system library or in the user library, or is there
It's-
conflict between the two?
Java is installed globally, so it's available to all users, but each user can have his or her own set of what it's allowed to
Would
do.
there be any conflict between some of those things, using a user Java out of the
Only if
library?
you've got more than one user account running at the same time. And by that I mean actual, user login account. Because I'll do that sometimes. I'll have the admin account running, and then I roll over to my local account. I'll be listening to music, and then I go back, and the other one's bringing in some stuff. Okay, now we're going to go to Frank. Yeah.
Talk about what you're doing with televisions. I'm interested, my wife's looking for another television.
Okay.
Like, I mean, yeah, you've gone through some process, give me some smarts.
You got any grown kids?
Gone, all gone.
Okay. Well, I was lucky in that the youngest was back from Washington for a day or so, and I took him over to H.H. Gregg,
Yeah.
and I took him over to Best Buy. And what he basically told me was this. One, he said, get your tape measure out and just measure your space first, because that'll tell you how big you can
Right.
go. All right, the next thing you want to look at is what sort of HDMI and USB inputs you have on this. And you want to look at your external devices, whether they're VHS recorders, DVD players, Blu-rays, to see how they connect to what you have now. And make sure you got... he recommended that I stay away from the smart TV stuff,
Okay, that's one of the
that I
questions.
stay away from the 3D stuff and the
Okay.
4D stuff. Okay, yeah, there's four.
Oh, yeah.
Time travel? I don't know. No, I thought that's what, the recorder was for.
More than one HDMI port is good.
Right. And then the other thing was, when they talk about high def, well, you got the 1080.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for, not the 720. 1080, and then whatever else they talk about, enhance this, enhance that, that's just marketing BS.
NHP is what you want.
Except for 4K.
And you get an Apple TV. That takes care of the smart part. It only costs $100, and you
Or
can...
a Rokio, or a Roku. What's the other one? Western Digital. You're supposed to say Western Digital. Because he has a Western Digital. So there's a bunch of these little 99,
Okay,
$89
LED
boxes.
and plasma, any,
Plasma, if you're willing to pay the big bucks, just the LED, regular, high def LED LCD is good enough for most people. Plasma is going to be energy, and I try and live a green life. I know that's so sad, but I try and live a green life, so I try not to go for energy-sucking appliances if I can help it.
It's like clothes. Go in and look at the same image on all the televisions, and two different people are going to have two different opinions of the screen. It's whatever you like as far as the way.
well, and I had somebody tell me difference in the light, what gets into the room when you're
Right.
watching TV
Yes.
makes a difference on whether LED or plasma is better. Does that sound
Plasmas are
realistic?
darker.
If you notice, the showrooms are always real dark unless
Yes.
you're at Costco or Sam's. And those are the places to go because it's very bright light in there.
Oh,
They don't
okay.
darken them down.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing to remember is that the televisions that are on display are in that sail display mode. So when you're at home and you're going through the menu that's on this, even though it's not a smart TV, it's still got all these menu items. There's different settings, and you want to take it off of that stored display setting, which is usually default, and put it towards movie, or I'm trying to remember what the standard is, the one I know.
there's enhanced and,
Yeah.
whoever.
Because that other one, it's going to make it ultra crisp, ultra bright. You're going to wear it out quicker, and you're going to use more energy with that setting.
How far away are you going to be sitting from the TV set?
Well, I would say maybe the max is 20 feet.
Well, see, that's going to depend on also the size that you're going to want to
Yeah,
get.
yeah,
You're not going
bigger.
to watch a 42 inch 15 feet away.
There's a formula for how big of a screen you can get
Okay.
based on how far away you are.
If you get a real big one and you're sitting close, it's not gonna look good.
Right.
It's no good.
Do some research on plasmas. Panasonic plasmas right now are great, but, and I know because I'm kind of researching this too for myself. But I did read, and I don't know whether it's been retracted, but next year, 2014, is supposed to be the last year for Panasonic and plasma. Samsung's the other major competitor against them. Everything's going to shift to OLED in a few years, so it kind of depends. But a lot of information that everybody said is just really readily available on online easily.
Okay.
So you go out to Walmart or Target, their website, and they'll have a buyer's guide to these widescreen TVs, and then you sort of, do the compare and contrast. Okay.
Well, I did a little research on this. We bought a plasma last year. And what I found was the plasmas can be viewed at greater angles than the other types, the LCDs
Yes.
and LEDs. And they usually have deeper blacks, so you have richer picture. But the caveat is that they're much heavier. So you need like 2 to 3 people to put one up instead of just hanging it up yourself.
And they run hotter
And the price is better.
So if we were doing an enterprise installation here, let's say this was a commercial that's constantly putting out our company propaganda, I'd be going with a plasma. Because that way, wherever they're walking in the lobby, they're going to see me, the CEO,
Okay.
saying how wonderful I am
Which
and
is
how wonderful I
either
am.
is or isn't a good thing depending on what you want.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And then the other caveat, you always have to remember whenever I'm giving advice, I'm cheap.
So am I.
Okay.
That's why we.
But that's why my wife's buying it, not me.
They make a nice thing to hook a Mac Mini up to also.
Ooh, something that a lot of people don't think about, but I use large screen TVs with my Mac Mini, with my MacBook. I've got that Apple TV box. Anything I'm doing on the MacBook, I can do
Okay.
AirPlay to the
Right.
Apple TV, and then it's on the big screen TV, including with my iPad Mini, iPod Touch. No, I'm not sure if the iPod Touch does it anymore, but with the iPad. So you got something, you got a YouTube video, and you go, oh, you got to see this one. Instead of
Okay.
shoving the iPad in their face, you just put it on their TV while they're watching The Price is Right, and you get beat up. Okay. Now I'm gonna come up front because Ray had something helped us, right?
Yeah, earlier, you and I spoke about this spam that I was getting and how to get rid of it. I've got one more thing I'll ask, is LinkedIn a legitimate business, or is it some of this spam also?
LinkedIn is a legitimate social network service. And if you go into your settings, you're using a web browser to talk to LinkedIn, you can go into those settings and you can tone down how many emails they're sending you.
Okay.
LinkedIn is kind of like Facebook for business. Yeah, that's what I
Okay, then I've accidentally gotten that one in. The other thing I notice is some of these names, support service, simply support, user support, and
These are
with
email
the same
accounts?
name. This is people sending me this
Mhm.
stuff. But when I go into, like in this case, I'm looking at one that says from support.
Mhm.
And if I highlight that, it says that the address it came from was mercs@czex.pl.
Okay.
But what I'll
Poland.
have is that support will always be from some other address in there.
Okay.
If I select support to go to the junk
Mhm.
file, will it take care of all of those if the
You've got to
sender's
do it
name-
for each one of those emails, because what's happening is, you've got an email address, blah, 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 at blah, 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 .ru, Russia, or something else out there. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Nigeria. Okay. But when it shows up in your website, let's say you're doing webmail, or it shows up in your email client, it says it's from Mary Jane Smith. Well, what they've done is they've done some stuff to the email, so while it's sent from this address, it's showing you something entirely different. So the original thing that Ray and I had talked about, he was getting all these emails from notification service. Well, he's on an iPad. He assumed it was notifications on his iPad that was sending him all this stuff, not really realizing it's actually spam. Because the spammers are infernal, diabolical, I'm trying to think of the next slime, and they know always know what they're doing with their tablets. And if it says notification service, they're going to think it's from their iPad talking to them, or from Apple talking to them, rather than it being from this guy, you know, who's sending pharmaceutical enhancement stuff that you can buy in Canada, but the email's sent from Poland or from Romania or from Georgia. If you remember, about 2 years ago, the Russians did this sort of thing through Georgia with their armor, and they took out all Quiet Tom. I can't tell you how much I've relied on this gentleman over the years. He has truly helped be one of the people that makes this organization spin out of control every month. And his topic today is genealogy on a Mac. And when I want to know about genealogy, I talk to this guy. Whether it's keep a weed whacker in your trunk so you can clean the grass and weeds around the tombstone so you can get that good picture of it.
It's basically take a tombstone home that was broken.
Yeah. In any case, I'm turning the meeting over to Tom, and I would ask you to be gentle. Okay.
This is with an open forum. I don't have to be too structured because genealogy research for the family, it doesn't appeal to everybody, to a select few maybe. Some people want to know a certain thing, others not. The main thing is you have to get started somewhere or decide whether you're going to be the historian of the family, whether you're going to pick up, not for yourself, immediate family, but maybe generations down. And that's the main factor. You have to think like my grandchildren, their children, what have you. Somewhere along the way, somebody's going to ask a question. A lot of kids today don't ask questions, and they didn't before, because it was never brought up and people didn't talk about it. As you can see here, this is today's, I decided to be the one in my family to do research. I didn't know much about it. I didn't know how many Curtners there were, and we weren't Curtner when we came here. When we came in Ohio in 1801, it was Curtner. Before that was Gartner, Gantner, all kinds of variations. It all depended where you lived. You could be down south, up north. It all is on phonetics, education, people who record information, write it in the book. People, when some of the people are listed in books as Mrs. Smith died. Well, he knew Mrs. Smith. He didn't put down who she was married to. So you have to do research. You have to look. And that's the main thing about it. And you decide whether you're going to be the person to do it. And if so, how do you go about it? And how far do you go? On the Mac, it's not, well, yeah, you might encounter some relatives like this too. Not everybody in the family is great. But the thing is, no matter who's in your family you have, there's a story. Just like any novel, movie, there's adventure, romance, everything. You'll find some people in the old countries, what they went through, if you can get to the records and you're transcribed. You'll find records of American history. You may be a part of it. But even if it's not written, it doesn't mean you aren't a part of it, because a lot of people are not written in the books. Because books were written by people who wanted money. Unless it was a volunteer organization of very dedicated people, like today you'll have go around in Dark County, different places, and they'll assemble a book on the history of Dark County. Well, you have to pay to get in it. So sure, you're going to embellish if you don't know everything. And in the old books, like Montgomery County history, Beer's History of Montgomery County, Dark County, Shelby, they went around and solicited funds to print these books. So people with money could afford to have them in the book. So what you have to do, if you're going to do it, in locally or in a distant relationship, county and local records, family histories in your family, oral traditions. Don't disregard oral traditions. I did on my mother one time. She was telling me stories that turned out to be true. I thought it was, she talked about the Civil War. Great-grandpa was killed by the Confederates when they fought in Indiana, Kentucky. Well, I didn't know there was a battle there, but there was. 2 of them. When Morgan went through, then we came back. So oral traditions and stories, like a lot of things, may have a basis in fact, or they may be embellished, just like Bible records. Bible records aren't gospel. Sometimes people write them down as they remember them, and if they didn't like a certain person in the family, they weren't in it. It happens a lot of times. People who remarried, the wife destroyed all evidence of a former wife. Same thing with the husband. She didn't want competition with the children or anything else. So you have to cross-reference, and it's an ongoing process that never really stops. You are the root of the tree. If you're going to do the research, it's you. You're the basis of the root. You have to start with you. You have to put down, when you write these things down, who you are, who your mother and your father is, grandmothers and grandfathers if you know them, as far back as you can go, because a lot of times the further back you can go, the more documentation you have, because public records get sealed. Except today there's an awful lot of, everybody's in public records right now. Whether you want it or not, you're a public record. Whether it's property tax, anything like that, subscriptions, phone books, all this correlated on the web. And you can find anybody if you're diligent enough, and you'll find out who they're associated with. And that's why sometimes when people do obituaries, too much information, too much detail. Some people are posting obituaries on Find a Grave, which is an organization which people put pictures of tombstones. So somebody will put up an obituary there. Well, it doesn't go away. It'll list everybody in the family. You may not want to have that happen. You can request to have it taken off. But this is the thing you have to put up with, because today with the internet, everything is out there. Everything is public. And it will not go away. If I do a research on my name on old stuff, it'll pull up stuff that I did back in '83. When I first started out. And so everybody here, you're on the internet, whether you like it or not, and you can request some information taken off. People steal trees, they pirated websites, they correlate. Web crawlers are out right now indexing people on the web who do searches and do things. A place like My Life, you can go there if you see a hit, you'll click on a name, your name, or somebody in the family, and all of a sudden this is associated with so-and-so. That's associated with so-and-so. And what's Facebook? Same thing. People walk through doors. You may restrict some people, but the person that's down there you allow in, they allow everybody in. So that person walks in, that person walks in, all of a sudden everybody's in there. It's public. You may not know anything about your family, but somebody else does. That happens. Now you have the sites, your different sites. You have to start at home. Any records that you may have, pictures, Bibles, anything. Collect all the information you can. And then you have to start documenting, organizing, talk to people who are still alive before something happens. Now they may be uncomfortable, but the more you talk to them, the more they remember. And if they start getting agitated, go away from it, pick up something else, and all of a sudden, trick of memory, they come back to it. You just have to be patient. And a lot of people don't want anybody to know anyway. So you respect that, you don't do it. If you're going to research part of your family and you encounter a relative and you ask and they say, I don't want anything, just respect it, don't do it. Get the basic information you want and put it down. And go on. Keep your connections, but don't invade their privacy. Later on, they may come about and want to come back and ask you a question. I've had that happen. They asked me, and I said, well, you didn't want to do it before. Well, they're interested now because more in their family are dying. And you'll find that people who get, as you get older, all of a sudden you're interested. Because you have less people to talk to. You don't know who. And then you see the television shows. Well, television shows usually cover famous people. Well, regular people are famous. There's people in history that did things that were never documented. somebody along the way, you cause a cause and effect. Well, Paul Revere may have stopped someplace along the line, somebody gave him some food or a drink. Who knows? But it was never documented unless somebody wrote it in a journal. In the old days, a lot of people, young and old, wrote journals. And that's another thing you hope to look at. And don't stick, once you start doing research, you don't restrict to your family because you'll find girlfriends of women who got married give information. So it branches out. I collect information on all sides of the tree, not just bloodlines, but everybody. Anybody who's married, everybody. Because you never know when that's going to come back. I have a relative in the club, didn't know about it. Distant relative, Barb Graff. Her line up in Miami County, and ours connected way back in the late 1800s in a distant relationship. Family, because you never know. Anybody in here been in an area, or even in Pennsylvania, Ohio, because when your family starts branching out, they could be in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, the main colonies, or if they came over in the boat, Italian, Slavic, all of them. People get married, lust in the dust, they cohabitate, children are born, they come back, and then they know somebody in the family, and all of a sudden you see these relationships coming back together that were never before. On your websites, at home, you want to start out asking, collect records, prepare to write everything, right, and document everything you can. Visit your local resources if possible. Like if you go to visit your local courthouse at home or here, if you have something here. If you're lucky, the records weren't destroyed. You can go down and you can get copies, which gets expensive. Ask the people complain to me it costs so much to do internet research. Well, it cost me tons of money when I stood in the courthouse, and then I got a thermal paper copy of a record for 75 cents, which disappeared in the light. So, you know, it always costs money because this is a time-intensive situation. Gasoline, you go through cemeteries, you go through vaults. And it depends if they let you do it. There's places where you go in. I stood in the vault for 8 hours one day. I didn't leave because I could go. I couldn't eat. If I left, I lost time. You can only carry a pencil, unmarked paper, and they counted the paper sheets that I had, and they looked at them when I came out. But I was allowed to look with gloves and handle record books from 1850 and look through there and write down. But they checked books afterwards because it used to be people would write and correct books, which is a no-no. You don't correct anything. Because like I said, our name over in Dark County, some of the relatives stayed as Curtners. But most of them died as Curtner. Some died Curtner. Because branches that separated came back together again. When we came here, it was Curtner. Most all of them died Curtner. The ones in Shelby County, Dark County, some of them reverted back to Curtner after they found that Andrew, when he died, was Curtner in his will. So that whole line changed their name back. People in Indiana, a lot of them became Curtner. Same people, same family, just different relationships. Pennsylvania, all over. And it happens to each and every one of you, all over. It doesn't matter if you came over later on a boat, Ellis Island, or what have you, or if you came in the 1700s. There's the relationship, there's the link. See, when I look out here, I see a genetic pool, because everybody's connected. And that's the main factor. Everybody is connected. And it depends on how much family you want. I find that I only have documented right now about 6,500 people. But I've entered every one of them in there by hand in the computer. And there are people who I have felt confident and verified. Too many people copy information on the internet. They'll merge databases on Ancestry, different ones. They get desperate to make a connection. There's no connection. But they got 70,000 people in their family. Doesn't mean anything, but they say they got 70,000 people. So the main thing is this: start at home with you. Remember, it's not just you're not doing this for you, but you're doing it for children, grandchildren. And it doesn't even have to be that line. Somebody on the other side, nieces, family, anyone who has that question. The internet. Money. Now there are free resources and there are paid sources. Ancestry.com is a conglomerate. It has UK, all over the world, different versions of Ancestry. The US subscription is $144.50 a year. But I'm on it every day, day in and out, continuously. I wake up during the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock, I'll go online. Free ones like the LDS, the Latter-day Saints, they've really grown. A lot of sites have grown. But Heritage Quest, pay. But you can get Heritage Quest at Ancestry.com through the library. But you have to go to the library. Libraries have a special subscription rate. You get a library card, your PIN number, you go to the library, and you can access Ancestry.com Library Edition. But it's restricted. You can't see personal trees and stuff like that because that's where they want the money. But you can see census pages, choose passengers lists, what have you. Do a lot of work. Then you can decide whether you want to go the other way and start paying. Now, the Latter-day Saints, a lot of those are free. Now, the older records, some of them, and they're only good as any transcription. Just like if you're at work and you write down quick notes and somebody makes a phone call on the order, you got to sit down and decipher what you wrote. Well, census taker and people who transcribe records didn't go back and change anything. They wrote it down as is. In 1820, our John Curtner was listed as Kellner in the 1820 census. When I looked at the 1820 census, you could see where it was because the cursive letters all combined together. You have to learn how to read cursive. A lot of people, younger ones, cannot read cursive. You had elaborate cursive, almost document certificates of some type. You know, they had swirls, plurals, your own style, W's, R's, everything. There's curls, all the way over the page. Well, what happens is the dissenter on one character might go down to somewhere else, and all of a sudden somebody who was a year older in the census was 11. Because the dissenter, when he wrote F for female, slanted down and went into the one-year-old in the next one down. That happened to my wife's line. Nathan Setzer. He was supposed to be a year old. I couldn't find him, but I found an 11-year-old. When I looked at it, the census taker had written, and the F in female went down in the same block with the 1. So he looked like he was 11. But I verified it through all the family members, cross-referenced, and that was them. So you have to learn to read cursive and decipher how they make it. If you can't, then you look at how they wrote the other names on a page or documents, and you compare character shapes. It takes time, but when you make that discovery, it's well worth it. The biggest thing on here, on the internet, is to know your browser and practice safe search. Have any of you ever done an actual secure search with your browser? Google and all of them offer it. Google has, that's when you have your HTTP, it has an S on it. Now that's not gospel. That's their closest thing to a secure search. If you do a search like that, and you can type in Google, secure search, Google. It'll take you up to SSL, and what you'll do, you click on that, and you'll see a little lock. That's your HTTPS. Now that's supposed to be where they don't track you, they keep less records, but that's not gospel. If you when it pops up, I have the male line and the female line. Of course, now it's all pretty. They have colors for male and female and all the children. But it's essentially an index card. And you file, and from that index card, you go to mother and father back and forth. And he's built it all these years. They're up to version 10.9 now. It's not cheap, it's $100. But if you have a previous version, that's like $54. But you can use the same version. You don't have to always upgrade. You can use the same version. 6, it doesn't matter. If it functions for the way you want, just like an old version of Word or a text-based program, no problem, just use it. But if you want the newer, have the fancy bells and whistles, it'll remind you every day whose birthday it is, so-and-so died, so. Mine comes up, I have a list of so many people with their anniversaries, how old they would have been on their birthday, everything, because that's of interest to me, but not everybody. Yes?
Honestly, I have a Mac family tree, which you can get on the Apple store, but it's in the past it's been not read as high as Reunion, but it's
Mac
getting
family tree,
better.
that's your family tree maker. Is that the version 2?
No, it's way up there now. I think it's 5 or 6. Mac
No,
family.
that's, okay, you're talking about Mac family, yeah.
and Mac.
There's Family Tree, I'm sorry, there's Family Tree Maker now from Family Tree or Ancestry. They, a while back, they dropped years ago, they never had a Mac version. Then after all these years, because of the OS X operating system and the cross compatibility between the PC and the Mac, so they did a version for the Mac. First version, the graphic interface and everything was klutzy. And then they came up with version 2, which is supposed to be better. I stick with one thing, I don't jump around. Reunions for me, it may not be for everybody.
Yep,
And
and
what,
I was gonna say, it's Mac Family Tree, it does have a mobile version for
Right.
iPad and for.
most of them do now,
Yeah.
because that's what's popular. Ancestry, Family Tree Maker has it, Reunion has it, they have it for the iPad, they have it for the iPhone and the iPhone Touch, all those, you have those. And people use it, but remember, it's on your phone's open, same thing. Unless your phone's secure, the information's out there. You have commercial software, which you pay for. It can run anywhere from $29.95 to $100. Most of them will have demonstration versions. Download it and try it out. Reunion has one, it's fully functional, but you're limited to 35 people. But at 35 people, and it comes with a demo mode with the Kennedy family. You can put multimedia, you can put movies, still pictures. When your index card or your family card comes up, you can have a picture of your Aunt Gertrude, anybody, each one can have a picture. It resides in a certain folder. And you can size it to a certain width and what have it, click on it, it pops up and you'll see it. But that is in commercials, always try a version before you buy it. Reunion, like I said, it's fully functional. Some of them you can't print. Some of them will print their name all through the sheet when you have it. So if you got something that says
Your name comes up.
that's the name of that program. Shareware, same thing. You have shareware that it's a small price, maybe $14.95. Some of them donations, and try those out. If it works for you, that's fine. Main thing you want to be able to do is put your information down, display your tree, print a tree, export and import GEDCOMs, graphic in exchange document. That way, if you find a file online and you want to download it and say it's on a PC, you can import that GEDCOM into the Mac. Because all GEDCOMs are like just certain things like Adobe. They'll all default to version 7 reader or even 6. So most people can open it. Same way with a GEDCOM file. But what you have to remember, if you download a PC version of the GEDCOM file, their character codes are in PC, Windows. The Mac character set's a little bit different. So if they use say they use quote marks on the PC GEDCOM, you import it in, it comes in with odd characters. But it's no different than if you didn't have the type font that a person had. You won't display it correctly. So what you want to do is import it as a Windows and then change the character set. Same way if you export. You might export and send your file to a family member and you say, I got, lines cut off. Well, the character set stops at a certain amount. They'll truncate the line. You have to know the limits. So you try those out. You have open source software for the Mac. But a lot of times you have to have an interface because what they do is they'll run both on Windows and Mac. So you have to install like Net Frameworks on a PC if you're going to run something. And in Mac you may have the same thing, you have to run something. But they're free, open source, just like open software work, the full documentation on Office. Instead of using Microsoft Word, you can use open source. These are your websites, commercial, Ancestry.com, Heritage Quest, all of them. They want money. They offer free trials, usually 2 weeks. Sometimes it's hard to get out. You got to really pound on the door to cancel it. They now sell gift subscriptions, but you can try Ancestry, like I said, at the library. I pay the money, try it out first, go to the library, try it. If you don't like it, you don't want to pay it, you don't have to. I think the lowest price per month, is $29.95. But when you get to yearly, it breaks down to a cheaper. And if you're on like I am, I pay for World Deluxe. So if any records they have from Slavic countries, anything, Denmark, they may not be translated, but I even use Google Translate. I get the gist of what it's about. I can copy it, just an actual image. And even if it's an image, you can have somebody translate it if you find it in the document. So you have to pay, and then you have free. And you can build your family tree on free resources like the Latter-day Saints. They're now listed on your searches as family search org. And they've changed their interface. It used to be when LDS, you go to this local stake and you would read microfishing. You have to put it in a machine and scroll all over these trying pages trying to read it. Well, now it's going to, and they put so much more on the line now that they're giving competition to Ancestry.com. And it's free. But the people who transcribe records just like Ancestry, if they can't read cursive, the handwriting, it's mistakes. So you always have, when you're doing research, is always be flexible and do wildcard searches. If you're looking...
There's a question in reference to free sites like Latter-day Saints. Is that more effective for Mormons than for the general population?
No,
or is it...
it's for everybody. The Latter-day Saints want to, they've always tried to document everybody. And the problem there is, members of the church will adopt families and research it. They're not related, but they try to bring them into the church. Well, they may not do any better job than somebody else in doing it. Too many times people, like I said, will document, try to document stuff which is not a real connection because they take it on other information, still on other information, which is falsehood. That's why it's best that you, at home, you start from the root, you work out, build your knowledge base of the family as much as you can and work from there. Contact relatives who are still alive and work that way. That way you have a basis to cross-reference later. Unless you're going out there and you're back to 1700s, it's kind of hard to do.
Just a couple little hints. To give you an idea when you're talking about, you got to kind of use your brain to figure out what's going on. Like, for example, if spelling can be very different, as you point out. Like, for example, I had a great-great-grandfather whose first name, okay, was Rule, R-U-E-L. But in one of the census, obviously the person who was taking the census wrote it R-U-L-E. I found that one of the good sources, and you've already mentioned it, is if you can go to like the local courthouse or something, you find an official document, like something related to a will. And like my grandfather didn't like that name, so he kept using Robert. But you know what? He was his father's executor. He had to sign his real name. So those are just a couple little hints, the kind of things that you're right. You really got to do detective work.
You also have to remember that the clerks that wrote it always didn't know.
That's true also, yes.
Because sometimes in the old courthouse records, you still had people speaking in heavy accents. They came, let's say the Gortners, when they came over, they come through Philadelphia and they say, what's your name? You know, and somebody's trying to tell them, so my name is Johann Gortner. Joseph Gortner? Sounded good. So he's Joseph Gortner. And that's what happens. My wife's relatives down in a certain part of in Kentucky is Bowling. Every variation of the word named Bowling, B-O-W, B-O-L-L-E-N, everything is there. They're all one family. One lived in Laurel County, one lived over here in the other, and she had Setzers. Some were Sesters. How the S got in front of the T, I don't know, but originally it was a Z after the T, North Carolina. But you learn through this research,
right,
and backtracking, cross-referencing, how to discern the differences on that. Phonetics are everything. How they talk, how we talk about, you know, we look at a word, how do we pronounce it? If you look at something, if you don't really know how to do it, you have a silent character or what have you, same problem. The free sites like Latter-day Saints, Roots Web used to be, well, Roots Web is still free. That was total, Roots Web was all volunteer organization in the beginning. By Genform and all those websites. They were by volunteers, they manned it, they collected data, They exchanged it for free. So Ancestry bought Roots Web. So the information for Roots Web does appear on Ancestry.com. Conglomerations always eat up the small people because they see that it's profitable. And the free sites could not always support. That's why when they asked for contributions and they never got it, they gave up. So the other people bought them out. They took over all their data, and it was published. You're going to find stuff on Roots Web that's wrong because, again, people have the wrong connection, and it just propagates all along down the line. So if you research your family as best you can, branch out, talk to relatives, build a sound base, you can get some coherence. But always be open to changes. How many ways do you spell regions?
You know, originally it was HOW, and on our coat of arms, and sometime in the 1800s they added an E.
Well, you also had, used to be, when genealogy first started, you know, big craze after roots, everybody was, books were, offers for books about your family tree. All it was a list of the name from directories and stuff, and a false family tree and everything like it. There was never really research, it was just a list of your names all over the U.S.
People today still add L's on the end of my name.
Oh, yeah. There's a lady I worked with, her family name is Worms.
Worms.
Worms, up in Mercer County. W-O-U-R-M-S, from France. But it's spelled different ways, and of course it ends up Worms, W-O-R-M-S. So you always have to be aware. And you see A's, you see E's. That's why when you do wildcard searches, if you're in a certain place and you're doing a wildcard search, say I'm looking for Curtner. But it may be still, our name in the 1930 census ended up as Curtner. Census taker wrote it that way. The 1940 census listed as Curtis. If it hadn't been for the members of the family that I know, my brothers and sisters in that, I found out I could cross-reference and I knew where they lived, that was them. But I look at it and I can see Curtner. But whoever transcribed these when the 1940 census came out, they couldn't read it. They couldn't read cursive and how people slant characters. Some people write backwards, slant forwards, straight up, long descenders, short descenders. My daughter was terrible when she was in school. I thought she was making crosses instead of T's when she was printing. But that happens a lot. So you always have to be, if you have family in the basis of name, you start researching, use your family members if you can. Like I said, I couldn't find our family in 1930. I used my sister's name, approximate age, location, and I found the family, and that's how I found Curtner. So when I entered that in my program, I listed in the program under notes, 1930 census listed as, of course I put township and everything. The name was listed as Curtner. That way, when I print out a report, everything is put out there. From the report, all the information I put in the notes, marriages and everything from the union will print out, depending on the type of report. If I want an on a top of report, it prints out all the way down. And it lists so-and-so married such and such, branch out, it reads like a mini story, which the Nazis used. On the top was used by this to document the Aryan race and the way they numbered their relationships. So you have different types of reports that you can generate. Any questions anytime? Like I said, this is really open for questions.
Are you going to put your charts on the site, on our web?
What charts?
These charts.
Your
Oh, this
presentation.
PowerPoint? Can you go back one, please?
Are you gonna post the?
Oh, this one here? Cities list is your top one up there. That's the one that has so many links, you'll spend days, years going through all of them. And she constantly updates. But Bill may be mailing this out in an email on the PowerPoint.
I just wanted to add that you were talking about cursive, and one of the things that you see in this country a lot in the older records was the first S looks like an F. And a lot of translators, if they're not a good translator, they're not translating that right. And so when you're doing searches, those are things to remember. And I found on Family Search and some of these other sites that oftentimes they're not getting the sound decks fully, so you have to go in and put some of these other names in to cover some of those other spellings that they're
That's
not.
right. There's a website called Surname Thesaurus. And you can plug a surname in, and it will give you variations of that name. The top hits, what have you. Like I said, this is what I've learned through the years. I've been doing this since 1983. I started out just using FidoNet, you know, the old nets, and you start going into the actual internet. You build up your knowledge base that way. Like I said, you don't want to have to go through all the pitfalls I did. So you be careful how you search. But like Cindy's list is generally safe than some of the others. There's not a problem with it. Jenna Musings, this actually came off of Jenna Musings, his online portals. That man is very good. He has links, like a lot of others that have links to the guys written down this. We actually have webinars you can view. You can see webinars. You can see how to do genealogy on YouTube. Just type it in, and Ancestry has their own version up there too. There's so many places that show you how to start genealogy. Yeah.
I have a different situation. All of my ancestors were from Italy, and I have names and birth dates back through 1700s, but I don't know where to go to get information before that.
Well, it depends on the smart documentation of the time. See, the other problem you have with the European countries are the wars.
Yes.
Churches were destroyed. Churches were a big value. And a lot of churches were destroyed. Whole towns, cities, everything was destroyed. It depended if they were saved somehow, they were ported out, buyback, hidden, buried, what have you. Now the LDS on the Family Search Book, they have quite a bit of the Italian records. Not a whole lot. Some are in Italian. Now you have to browse images. If it's browse images prepared, you have to click on each single image. And it's at a time. And if you don't know the variation on the name, you get a lot of work. Like we have, both like in the family we have Battigelli, Vitale, Scarametti, you have Chiambre, but they spell differently. They have accents on certain characters. So what the Italian would have is different than what the other would be had. And even compared today, if you go to Cutro, Italy, and you see the records, they don't spell it the same way. And that's where, if you're lucky, there are sites that if you keep searching, I've been able to find some sites that I can actually find some of the records from parishes. But you have, and the LDS does have some. But you have to look at them because what's transcribed always is not correct. They may have the name spelled wrong. Phonetically, what have you. Chiambre, Bra, O, my A with an accent mark, just like a double S in German, Schloss. It's two S's, looks like an F.
But is there anything specific that goes, say, 1750 and...
You have to look. It depends on the area.
Uh-huh.
It depends on the wars. It all depends on that.
Well, already it's a problem in Italy because before Italy was united in 18, whatever it was, they didn't have city records. So beyond 1800, I had to go to the old church. And luckily there was a priest there who had lived in Cleveland for a while. And so and of course the handwriting is hard to read. So he helped me go back to, through the...
Right. If you're fortunate enough on somebody like that, that's true. Records, you have to really delve for them. They don't always exist online, and you have to pay a distant person to do the research for you. And if you can verify that they're reliable, and usually a lot of reliable ones, and their basic research in the beginning is you pay $100 and they'll do X amount for you. After that, you're billed on time-wise and what they find. It depends if you negotiate the price for the different things and whether it has to be translated. But the main thing is, there's a lot of sites you go through Cindy's. Now, Cindy's will have references to Italy research. That's why I said she's one of the most popular, and like a lot of the others, you can branch out, find what the others have to offer. Just like if you do Canadian research, you do French research. You learn history. Let's put it this way, when you do research on your family, you learn history. You really do. The good and the bad. When I was doing research, I found out like our fifth great-grandfather was in the Battle of Almass prior to 1770. It was in 1772. And the British sent troops in and fought farmers. And they were known as regulators in North Carolina. They wanted regulated taxes because the British were controlling the taxes. The rich people weren't paying much. Farmers were paying too much, and it was never regulated. They charged it on a biased basis, and you learn about Whiskey Rebellion, all these different things in history, families or what have you, part of it. And it happens in the old countries as well as here. Whether it's Ireland, well, it's everywhere. You always have, why did the potato famine happen? When was the big influx of Irish that came in? Things like, we always learn things. There's always something to learn. And you'll find facts about your family you never realized.
Two things. One, if you as an individual don't have time to do the genealogy work, if you have another member of your family that's a little bit interested in, I'd suggest you encourage them to work on it and feed them information that might be helpful. I've got a sister that's the keeper of Southie in our family. The other thing is talk to them about what's the disposal of the information when she passes on. Who, you know, you've got to cultivate the next generation that's going to.
One of the biggest things with doing research is you need to find someone who's going to take your work. Too many families, just like someone dies in the family now, daughters will go in and fight over things. They want this and that. They throw pictures away. So in the trash can goes documents, pictures. They have no interest. They don't know who they are. You might have discharge papers from the Revolutionary War. They threw in a trash can. They didn't know what it was. They didn't care.
I can add to that. I used to live out in California, and we had to take our trash to the dump. And I'm a trash picker. I pick up stuff and bring home. Somebody must have cleaned out someone's home, and there was the family history. Pictures, birthday cards, and everything was in a pile in the dump because it wasn't passed on. And there's a family lost a whole lot of its history.
There are our websites that people have started. People who, out of their kindness, they buy pictures at garage sales, photo albums, because of this. Somebody, they found it or it was in the trash. They try to sell it for $2. These people will take them. They'll scan them. If there's names, they write it. They put them there. And one lady, if you can prove it's your family, she'll send it to you. But you got to pay for what she paid for. And I've seen her quite a few times. You pay for the shipping, but you get the albums or the pictures. And if you find these websites, you look at it. And once again, be careful where you click. Go through the list, like Cindy has some of those on those sites. And you look at the pictures, you might be able to recognize somebody through something you saw one time. And I found one for my wife. In one of my email lists, I signed up on all kinds of email lists for the different counties and different states. And one came up, woman found her aunt died, and she found this box of pictures, and one said Ed Philpott on the back, and it's his wife's name. Well, I knew who it was. My wife didn't, because she wasn't too concerned about doing the research. I'd come in the morning, I'd say, well, I found so-and-so. She goes, who's that? Well, this is your second cousin twice removed.
She still goes.
Yeah. But I talked to the lady, I sent her all the information, who he was. He was a lawyer down in Bell County, Kentucky, and everything else. I went to pick my wife after work one day. About 2 months later, she said, I got a letter here. Guess what's in it? It was a little 3x5 picture of Ed Philpott. The lady sent it to me. Because I sent all the information, nobody claimed it, so she sent it to me, which was nice. Now I have the picture. I was able to take, and my wife, I can't see a relationship to her grandma. Well, I scanned them and put their faces together. Well, it was like a male, female, same person. Same nose, everything. Yeah. Seeing them together makes it completely different in context. Another point, next time you go to Cracker Barrel and you look at the old pictures, your relative might be up there. Seriously. They acquire these old family photos at sales and what have you. they're in public domain, and then they clean them up, reproduce them, and have them hang in the cracker barrel. So you might have somebody there you don't even know. And if you see a picture that's not an actual photograph, it looks like a charcoal, like they used to do. And this is what you learn too. Your old pictures, and they actually had if they had a photograph, it would fade. Light, sunlight, air, oxidation kills pictures irregardless. People who have these beautiful pictures hanging in walls with sunlight coming through in the morning, eventually it's not the same color. It loses pigmentation. The old pictures would fade. You had traveling charcoal artists would come by and they would redo the pictures. They weren't exact, but they saved the picture. They had a faint brown image on paper and they would charcoal the image in. I was able, through a cousin, acquire 2 pictures that had been in big oval frames. She wasn't concerned about the pictures anymore, so I copied them back when I had 35 millimeter. And I took pictures out in sunlight on the back of my car and copied them and printed them out in 1x14s and mounted them on boards for her. And she was happy with them. I got the originals. And that's how I found my great-great-great-uncle, what he looked like. So you never know where you're going to find it. When you do research, you don't give up. You never know what you're going to find. It's like here, there are rewards. My 5th great-great-grandfather in North Carolina, George Curtner, he was a regulator. His father was, and all of them were all fought in the Battle of Alamance. This is Brick Church down in North Carolina. And that was all the founding members are still in the churchyard. My brother Bob and Teresa found it. And they went down to North Carolina. You never know how you find that. Like my niece's husband, he was up at Woodland Cemetery, and I was looking for an Uncle Ira. He says, "Is this it?" And he was standing on the stone. You never know how you're going to find it. But through research, now that goes back, and it goes way back. Now, they first came over in 1734. One came in 1728. But again, you have a hard time documenting it. Suppositions sometimes you have to go with. If you correlate the data, the area, the time they came, you put it in your notes if you want to. You put it in your database. Make notes. This is your opinion. It's pretty strong. There's only so many of them. But there are gardeners, G-A-R-D-N-E-R, that actually were gardeners starting out in Pennsylvania when they came over. Because in the German, they were Gärtner. G-A, that was spelled in the old German books and churches, G-A-R-T-N-E-R, with the umlaut over the A, which also is like O-R-E-R. So some are translated to O-E-R. Some over gardener. You have all kinds of variations. So when you see like family trees, you might have 16 variations on your name. Because every different place you go to, that's a variation. Gortner, Gettner, Gartner, all of them. Cottner, Calner, all of them. You can't discount anything. That's why you build a basis and you work back and forth. You can do it. But don't click right away. Be careful where you go. And always know your browser, how to disable certain parts of it, like JavaScripting, if you're afraid to go in certain places. You go to a page like anything else, you walk into some place, you don't feel comfortable, get out. Clean your history. If you have to, clean your complete history. So what, you have to retake the names up for this password and stuff. Because a lot of times, if you, in your browser like Firefox or what have you, you go to AOL or different places, and if you click on it, you just tap down, it already brings up your name, with what you have to do, your password. So you just have to re-enter it. What's it matter? I don't keep anything anyway. Always it's up here. But I do have it written down. But always remember, your work has to be somewhere along the line. Who are you going to give it to? Because if you die or something happens, it's in the trash. Or somebody else will take the information and publish it under their name. But it's rewarding if you want to do it.
I have an interesting story to tell you. If anybody has Amish or Amish Mennonite genealogy in their history, my aunt who has died was working in Fredericktown. This gentleman comes in, pays a bill. The last names are the same, Byler. And my Aunt Peg and this guy start talking. Typical Amishman, he pulls out a stubby pencil and starts writing a family tree. My Aunt Peg is amazed. he says, you need to find the book, and the book's title is Amish and Amish Mennonite Genealogies by Henrik and Kreiter. It's about that thing.
You can find a lot of these through Google search on books.
Yes, and the interesting thing is, I got it, I put a copy in the Wayne County Library, and I have one.
Yeah.
And my father comes up, and we're going through.
I don't know if Wayne
and
County
there's-
still does this over in Indiana.
No, this is Wayne County, Ohio. Worcester.
Well, in Allen County Public Library up there, used to be if you had a family history, letters back, well, Henry Curtner, when he went out west, and he ended up buying the Spanish hacienda in California. You got Curtner Avenue and all that. The family actually gave them the original letters that he wrote. Well, they gave them a bound copy of that back. They kept the original, but they gave them a copy back. They did have that program. I don't know if they still do it or not. But you can, if you do Google book searches, some of the books, they have snippets you can see, pages, if that name pops up, and Internet Archives. I pointed this out a couple years ago. Internet Archives, all these years have been taking snapshots of web pages, pages that don't exist anymore. Scioto.org, down in Portsmouth, Ohio. The lady who had that had so much information, but she had property rights. She was a smart woman. When she died, they couldn't use it. So Scioto.org had to start all over, get permission, to start from scratch, cemetery inscriptions and everything. I plugged in the old URL in the Wayback Machine in Internet Archives. Pops up, and it lists the years of the activity, but some of the links are still good. I was able to copy cemetery inscriptions, weddings. You never know. And they're constantly, and always had, well, the government wanted access to all their stuff. They said, no, they had property rights. They thought they wanted all the information off Wayback Machines. It was illegal. It wasn't. And they've used it themselves because web pages still exist out there floating around. Maybe not all the links, but they're still there. So if you know it, you know the old name of it, Internet Archives, just type it into Google, it'll pop up. They even have public domain movies from 20s, 30s, silent movies, sound. It's old software. If you're running an old Apple II, you can find software for it. All kinds of stuff. They have, it's a vast library, and they also have books. Books might be in PDF format, and you can view them online, and then save them as ebooks or download them in PDF. There's a whole world of information out there. Just you pay or you don't pay, or you just keep searching. Sometimes you find freeway, like newspaper archives and get actual scanned images of newspaper pages. I found murders, births, marriages, everything. And some of them are free to the libraries, but you have to pay. You have Fold 3, which is that's another website started out. It's a pay service. They do a lot of military, county lands, southern stuff. Well, it costs money, but if you get a library card at Washington Township, and the PIN number, they have access to it. And you can be at home and log in and research on Fold 3. And if you've got somebody, especially if they were Confederate Civil War, you can get, so a lot of times there are roster pages, there are pension applications, all that. And you can download it, and then you get more room on your hard drive.
Thank you, Tom.
The main thing is have fun, you know. Know that your information is sensitive.